We are kicking off the new season of the program Your Money with detailed economic forecasts from highly regarded experts for 2026. What awaits the Russian economy in the upcoming year? A significant drop in oil prices, the imposition of harsh new sanctions from the United States, and record-breaking military spending. All of this will trigger a chain reaction, threatening the Kremlin with a banking crisis, defaults, and a breakdown of the consumer market. Putin's Russia is entering a zone of turbulence from which, just imagine, it may not make it out. The evidence is coming up next.
Thousands of citizens of the aggressor country rang in the new year 2026 in total cold and without water. In the village of Atamanovka in the Zabaykalsky region, 3,000 people lived without heating for almost a week in minus 20-degree frost. In addition to the heating main breakdown, pipes with cold water are constantly bursting there. And it's like this all over Russia.
A major utility accident in the Krasnodar region. Over 43,000 people were left without heat, water, and electricity. Belorechensky is completely cut off. The accidents there started back on the evening of December 30th. Electricity appeared on some streets only the day before, but there is still no heat or hot water either in the city or in the Belorechensky district.
And that's just in the first month of the heating season. By mid-December, 123 cases of large-scale heating outages in residential buildings were recorded in Russia. Such widespread man-made emergencies reveal the real state of the Russian economy.
This is a snapshot of what is happening and will continue to happen to Russia's economy. The nose breaks off and crashes to the ground along with the pilots.
Many industries are in decline, showing just how bad things are in Russia. But utility accidents hit the population especially hard. These disasters are not just unexpected cold weather surprises, but the logical result of a severely deficit-ridden budget. Putin doesn't care how many dozens or hundreds of Russians are freezing. He spends all the money on the war. That's why regional authorities are cutting spending on utilities, which means less money for network repairs. Networks that, according to official data, are 40 to 80% worn out in the regions. But things won't get any better. There will be a huge deficit.
When we examine the current financial plan, we can clearly see that all of these specific expenses are well within the allocated budget. This will continue into the next year as well. The national budget deficit will likely be around 6 to 8 trillion rubles, rather than the 3 to 8 trillion as you have currently planned.
The Kremlin has already built a guaranteed hole into the treasury. It's all due to the enormous war expenses and the clearly overestimated price of Russian oil.
The Russian Federation's budget is based on an average annual oil price of $59 per barrel. So, in other words, it's a completely unrealistic figure. Today, the actual price of euros is 50. The actual price of euros is 50. But that's the spot price for euros at 50. That is, the contract price for euros is even lower. Do you see what the problem is? The problem is that there are simply no other sources at this time. Russian officials are now openly admitting that instead of 45% of the Russian budget being funded by oil and gas revenues this year, it will actually be only 27%.
The Central Bank of Russia has already warned that without an increase in oil prices, the budget will have to be cut. If in 2026 Russian oil remains at current levels, the authorities will have to revise what was laid out in the budget. $59 per barrel, which means expenses will have to be reduced. Analysts are certain that the price of Russian oil will not only fail to stay at its current level, but will continue to fall. This is a global trend, and even the most serious international upheavals have not affected it.
Neither the political tension, to put it mildly, in Venezuela that preceded Maduro's overthrow, nor the widespread protests in Iran, which are said to foreshadow the possible imminent collapse of the Ayatollah's regime, have had any noticeable impact on the situation. The price situation on the global oil market is very interesting. Prices kept falling.
Except for low oil revenues, experts are warning about a banking crisis. Non-payments are rising, companies are taking on more loans, while the economy is declining.
One morning, someone woke up, rubbed their eyes and said, "Oh, we've just discovered that the Russian banking system has a staggering 10 trillion in bad debts." As they put it, this is not a banner for the banking system. Interestingly, this is already the second year, says the Center for Macroeconomic Analysis and Short-Term Forecasting, which has always predicted a crisis in Russia in 2025. but the government has managed to contain this crisis, apparently by secretly injecting money into the capital of the largest state-owned banks. Now the center is analyzing again, and they are once again saying that by September 2026, there will be an acute banking crisis. Therefore, as they say, banks won't be able to cover everything, solve everything, or resolve the entire problem in the economy.
Russian citizens themselves are facing new levels of inflation. Russia is preparing for a sharp increase in electronics prices. Sellers are warning that in 2026, smartphones will become 10 to 12% more expensive and laptops will go up by 20 to 30%. The reason for the price increase is the introduction of a technological levy on top of the VAT hike.
As I mentioned, inflation will intensify and we still don't really understand by how much. Right now, I'm starting to collect reports about possible price increases next year. Some fragmented reports are coming in, but they're quite alarming. People from the alcohol market are telling me that in the first quarter, prices will jump by as much as 15% at once. Then there's information that the industry is preparing to raise prices by up to 30% for many types of goods. Then there's information coming in from a telecom operator about the proposal to raise the VAT rate and other related issues. They're also planning to raise the price of junk almost up to 15%.
Russia greeted 2026 in misery. In the cold, without water or electricity, widespread utility failures only highlight the crisis. The budget is in deficit, oil revenues are falling, military spending is rising, banks are accumulating bad loans, and prices are hitting the population hard. It seems that 2026 will be the year of economic collapse for the aggressor country.
Russians have started preparing for an inflation shock due to upcoming tax increases. As if everything didn't already get more expensive in 25, in 26, people are facing a new, even bigger wave of price hikes. And we'll get into the details about that next.
As it continues, it worsens. Putin's myths about life in Russia have failed.
I doubt I can contribute any new insights here.
The dictator's made up stories that the country's developing despite unprecedented sanctions and pressure from the Western world.
That overall, the situation is stable and reliable.
Don't hold up to the facts. Putin is standing on the brink of economic disaster.
Everything's fine, we're just fallen. That phrase, everything's fine, we're just fallen, really sums up the Russian economy. When people say everything is fine, but the decline is more than obvious.
Russian authorities are preparing the population for a sharp decline in living standards because of a record budget deficit, which in 2025 will reach almost 6 trillion rubles.
The 5.7 trillion budget deficit that the Russian Ministry of Finance is talking about is planned according to their calculations. As for the calculations of more independent sources, let's call them this way. Let's say the former deputy head, even the first deputy head of the Central Bank of Russia in the South, Yugin said there would be 8 trillion budget deficit. They're definitely not 5.7 anymore.
To cover the financial gap, the Kremlin plans to raise taxes.
This means raising taxes and fees, and Russia's going for it. Starting January 1st, the value-added tax will be increased to 22%. But there will also be a recycling fee introduced, and the environmental fee will be raised. A recycling fee, a higher environmental fee, and yet another new fee will be introduced.
The government also plans to freeze money in bank accounts and further cut social spending. Maternity capital will only be paid out for a third child, and family mortgage programs will be shifted onto the regions.
This is what the propaganda's talking about. Mardan is one of the leading Russian propagandists, as well as other Russians. As the Orthodox oligarch Malofeyev calls it, this means the state shouldn't pay pensions. In other words, the abolition of pensions. Furthermore, another significant consequence is that the state will distribute a smaller amount of financial resources for salaries in the public sector, so the possibility of widespread layoffs exists here as well. Next, what could happen is the printing of money.
Economists note that Russia is facing a typical wartime crisis. Rising military spending, budget deficit, and increasing prices for fuel and food. Annual inflation in Russia has exceeded 8%, and gasoline prices have risen by more than 10%.
There will be an acceleration of inflation, precisely because this money will be injected, and because taxes will go up, this will further fuel inflation. At the same time, inflation in Russia is already far from low. Officially, of course, it's 8%. However, experts monitoring these trends say that the actual rate of inflation currently being experienced across the Russian Federation is significantly higher. For essential food items and common consumer goods used in everyday life, the real figure is approximately 28 to 32%.
Secondly, over the past 7 years, the increase in VAT in 2026 will put Russia among the top 20 countries in the world. In terms of this tax level, only some European countries and a few outside of Europe have a higher VAT. Russia will be sharing the top spot with Uruguay.
And in Russia, yes, they're going ahead with raising this VAT. It will undoubtedly hit the economy hard, impacting supply chains. Regarding the supply chain, each time a product is resold, you'll pay 2% more. So it may seem minor, but it's actually going to hit the population hard, especially as Russia leads other nations in this area. With this tax, it means that in Russia, it's not profitable to create added value, which basically means it's not profitable to do anything at all.
Simply put, the Kremlin dictator warring with Ukraine is ruining his own empire, destined to collapse.